From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the Witching Hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Giant of the Frost, and joining me, as always, is Medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I'm doing fabulous because I'm already laughing at all the butt comments.
I had to fly blind tonight. I couldn't hear the music for some reason.
You had like double music going on. It was great.
Yeah.
It's going to give me a seizure.
I couldn't hear anything. Sometimes it does that, and I just have to like restart Streamlabs. But I'm not going to do all that just to hear some intro music. Even though
you got it straight.
Linguist's song, is awesome. Fire. Yeah. But yeah. Anyhow, good to see everyone back again this week. There we had that 1 week off, and now we're getting it back into a row again. So welcome in, everyone.
Train
welcome
just
in,
keeps
Keisha.
On rolling.
Yeah, it sure does. Welcome in, Keisha. Welcome in, Luce. Welcome in, Hoaxsters.
Hoaxsters resubbed 8 months. Thanks, Hoaxsters. You're the best.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, Hoaxsters. All right. So just to kind of catch everybody up on what we have coming on, we do have last week, we have the interview. You can find that on YouTube and in all the places you listen to your podcasts. We've had some good ones lately, and we expect that to keep on going. Like I said, we've had some really good talks. Next wech, we are going to have Irene Panikopoulos back on. And,
yay, Irene.
Yeah. And we are going to discuss some haunting stuff as well as what she has going on with some TV stuff happening, some paranormal investigations. So we're going to talk to them. And then on the 26th, we have the much anticipated, much ballyhooed 2-year anniversary stream. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Ballyhooed?
Yeah. You don't like the good old like 1910s?
Where's the dictionary?
I don't know. Maybe I just made it up. The Halloween special, but it's also our 2-year anniversary, so we have lots of stuff planned fun for that. So make sure you put that on your calendars and pop some popcorn or candy corn or caramel corn, caramel corn, caramel or caramel.
Caramel.
Maybe that can be a poll at some point in time this Halloween season. Mm-hmm. So anyway, lots of good stuff coming up. Yeah.
And tonight, Keisha's already warning Sunshine that if we love her, she will be harassed to return.
Okay. Are we ready for the news?
What were you going to say, Sunshine?
I was going to say the good news is I love to talk, so bring it on.
There we go.
Yay. All right, it's news time.
News time. All right.
What weirdness do we have this week?
Okay, so a lot, I'm telling you, the more we do this, I feel like the more the universe realizes I need weird news. Because like the more
you
stuff
asked
that
and
just
you shall
happens,
receive.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about this before, but the next big solar storm could fry the grid. And basically it's a story that's been coming out that people have been talking about. There has been some very big solar storms lately, and it hasn't even reached a solar max yet. There's going to be lots of more solar storms coming, and they've looked at the past and kind of what's going on there. And some scientists are concerned. So the story is, waking up and, people losing power, trying to get information about the power being out could be troublesome because you don't have any internet access, you don't have any radio, you don't have any television. And then, eventually you find out that millions of people across the globe do not have power, and what the issues of that could be. A situation where we could have months or years of trying to rebuild the grid, the electrical grid, to be able to get things back online again. And that is exactly what could happen if we get hit with that gigantic solar storm. The odds are low that in any given year, a storm big enough to cause effects this widespread will happen. And the severity of those impacts will depend on many factors, including the state of our planet's magnetic field on that day. But it's a near certainty that some form of this catastrophe will happen someday, says Ian Cohen, a chief scientist who studies heliophysics at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. To get ahead of this threat, a loose federation of U.S. and international government agencies and hundreds of scientists affiliated with those bodies have begun working on how to make predictions about what our sun might do. And a small but growing cadre of scientists argue that artificial intelligence will be an essential component of efforts to give us advance notice of such a storm. And it kind of goes on to talk about, things that have happened in the past. One in 1859, a now legendary storm known as the Carrington event hit well before we built a civilization dependent on electronic devices. It caused auroras as far south as the Caribbean.
Wow.
Made telegraph lines spark, caused fires at some telegraph stations, and shut down parts of the telegraphing network in the northern hemisphere. So we can only imagine in the 1800s, if it wreaked havoc, what it could do to a very technologically dependent world that we've created here. So
Keisha said maybe we should have come up with better ideas 10 years ago.
I remember...
Tens of years ago.
Well, I remember listening to Art Bell back in the 90s when they would have people on and they would talk about how it was imperative that then that we bury our electrical cables, that we could do that, and we could basically make ourselves protected from solar flares, but also EMPs if they were to be used like militarily against us. So it could be a good way to keep that from happening. But it would cost a lot of money. And so we would rather... I guess when it comes down to it, we'd rather build tanks than protect our grid. So off we go. Number 2 tonight.
What would have been cool?
What's that?
Is if at some point we would have figured out how to get all of our energy and power from the sun.
Ooh.
And then when the solar flares came, we would have had extra power.
There you go. Well, exactly right. That is kind of curious. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly.
1920 or something.
We're getting there slowly. But yeah, something's got to be done eventually. I imagine it will take something like that to make that. Usually change doesn't happen in, reactionary, reactionary. So number 2, a 2,749 pound pumpkin breaks the world record at California Way
Saw
Off.
that. Yeah.
A Minnesota farmer's 2,749 pound pumpkin took the top spot at the 50th annual World Championship Pumpkin Way Off in Half Moon Bay, California, and broke a world record in the process. Travis Ganger claimed his 3rd victory in California competition with a pumpkin he named Michael Jordan. He previously won in 2022 with a 2,560 pound pumpkin named Maverick, and in 2020 with a 2,350 pound gourd named Tiger King.
Tiger King. That was very relevant to the times.
Yeah, it was. His previous pumpkins broke national records, but his latest effort took the Guinness World Record for largest pumpkin.
Wow.
From a 2,702 pounder grown by Italian farmer Stefano Catruppi in 2021.
I want to know how they move it.
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. From the place it was grown to wherever they judged the things.
I know, right? And it's got to be so dangerous. That's got to be like a white knuckle transportation situation.
What if it accidentally falls off the truck?
Yeah.
I'm looking at some pictures and they're showing them. I don't know if you've ever seen an engine lift.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it almost looks like an engine lift picking it up, and then they're putting them on flatbed trailers. But yeah, I would imagine it would be very scary, because if you're in a contest, the slightest ding could take a fraction off, and poof, there goes a pound, or
off it goes.
10. Yeah.
Wow.
The farmer said that caring for the pumpkin cost him about $15,000 since being planned April 10th.
I was a hungry pumpkin.
And he received a $30,000 prize. So I guess that's not too bad.
It worked out.
You make 15 grand off of it. There you go.
Yeah.
Off to another one we've talked about recently here, ancient footprints up in timeline of humans' arrival in North America. So new evidence adds to work showing people made the footprints at White Sands. Have you seen those before? The footprints at White Sands?
I saw that, yes. Not in person, of course, but
that they were made sometime between 21 and 23,000 years ago.
It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
We just keep finding older and older and older things, you know?
Well, that's kind of what this article is about, which is why I decided, we've been talking about it so much, I decided to throw it in the news today. So, dozens of awe-inspiring ancient footprints left on the shores of an Ice Age lake have reignited a long-running debate about when the first people arrived in the Americas. 2 years ago, a team of scientists came to the conclusion that human tracks sunk into the muds in White Sands National Park in New Mexico were more than 21,000 years old. The provocative finding threatened the dominant thinking on when and how people migrated into the Americas. Soon afterward, a technical debate erupted about the method used to estimate the age of the tracks, which relied on an analysis of plant seeds embedded with the footprints. Now, a study. So this was a couple years ago, but this just came out recently. A study published in the journal Science confirms the initial finding with 2 new lines of evidence: thousands of grains of pollen and an analysis of quartz crystals in the sediments. Fossil footprints were first seen in New Mexico's Tularosa Basin in the early 1930s and were initially thought to be evidence of a Bigfoot. They turned out to be from a giant ground sloth, a 2,000-pound mammal that went extinct around 10,000 years ago. So at the end of the Ice Age, researchers also found tracks from trudging mammoths, a dire wolf, and other Ice Age creatures. Bustos, one of the people who was studying this at the park, said he first saw fossilized footprints in the basin that looked human in 2009, and a growing team of scientists began to study them. Those tracks brought to life a vivid snapshot of the Pleistocene, the epoch that started 2.6 million years ago and ended 11,700 years ago.
It's just fascinating. Like, how long would it take for the footprints to become fossilized? And how in the world did nothing step on it or mess it up between when the foot sunk in the mud and the time that happened? Like, there just must have been a lot less stuff, you know? Yeah.
And the other news story that I had kind of attached to this was kind of a continuation of this, about, who were the first Americans, and talking about the Clovis and the Bering Land Bridge. Everyone's still on the same page in this article. They're talking to different anthropologists and stuff like that have been studying this, and they still are on the same page that everyone came through the Beringia continent. So they're still stick there, but they're talking about how humans could have come as early as 31,500 years ago, which would have been like the heart of the Ice Age.
Wow.
So
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, before stuff started melting. So it's pretty interesting.
Get your mammoth gear on. We're going across the land bridge.
I can post the article to Discord possibly. There's a really cool map that was on the story that I was looking at that showed like pinpoints in the Americas, North and South America, about where these foundings were made and how old they were. And there was actually one that was like in Brazil, of stone tools that were like 60,000 years old.
Wow.
But they think they were made by like capuchin monkeys. So, but they don't know for sure. Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
We'll leave that story for another time.
And we'll keep it going since we're talking about things with 2 legs in North America. Bigfoot reportedly spotted from a train in the remote part of Colorado. Every once in a while, the Out There Colorado team will receive a report of Bigfoot sightings. Very rarely do these reports come with their photos or video footage to support the claim. Thus, in most cases, the report is very difficult to cover. That wasn't the case with the Bigfoot report that landed on October 10th, when Shannon Parker reached out to share an experience that she and her husband Stetson had on the popular Durango to Silverton train ride over the past weekend. They were seated near the back of the train when they spotted movement on a hillside. The 2 were shocked when they noticed it wasn't your average animal, instead moving about on 2 feet. The person beside them grabbed their phone and started recording while Shannon snapped several photos. The video footage that was captured is compelling, clearly showing the Bigfoot creature walking and then squatting down. And they said that when it comes to Bigfoot, seeing was believing. They found it odd that the majority of those on the train passed the scene without noticing the creature. It didn't cause any sort of an uproar, and had those in the back seats of the locomotive.
Is that really that surprising?
Would have gone unnoticed.
I don't think that's that surprising.
Yeah. She shared the photos with the people who worked on the train. They said they had never seen anything like that before. So if you're interested, I did post that over on Discord, over in Weird News. So you can go to the
article. It earlier. It's pretty cool.
They have the video that was taken, as well as some still photos and close-ups and all that stuff. So let us know what you think.
One of my former students is now a park ranger in Colorado, and she's seen all kinds of cool stuff. I hope one day she gets to see the Bigfoot, and then she can tell me all about it.
It says in the story that Colorado isn't a hotbed for Bigfoot, but they do have sightings there. So
then we can have her on as a guest.
There we go.
That'd be cool. Come tell us your Bigfoot story.
And that was, ladies and gentlemen, the Weird News.
Yay!
All right, so we have what I think is going to be a great show for you tonight. We've been super excited about this one coming up. So Sunshine is a psychic medium, soul healer, spiritual advisor, high priestess, Reiki master, recovering alcoholic, and founder of Sunshine Readings. Her passion is helping others learn how to step into their shadows so they can uncover their own magic and psychic gifts needed to remove any energetic blocks to their soul's enlightenment. She is the creatrix of Illuminate, the unschool of witchcraft. This transformational program includes Sunshine's divine-inspired gifts and 7 different monthly workshops and one-on-one access to her. In addition to owning and operating Sunshine Readings, Sunshine is also an award-winning software product manager and business operations expert that is helping corporations revolutionize their internal structure and process to adopt a more innovative culture. In her spare time, you will find Sunshine dancing, cooking, painting, and hanging out with her 5 kitties in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. Please welcome to the show, Sunshine. How are you doing, Sunshine?
I am super excited. I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Yay!
Excellent.
Some of our most loyal viewers live also in Michigan. We have quite a few of them.
We have some Michiganders here.
Yes, quite a few.
Where are you guys at then?
We're in Virginia.
You're in Virginia. Did you guys get hit with, because we were talking about the solar flares, and back in 2004, when the whole Northeast, the whole grid went out?
I don't know. Do you remember that happening for us?
Oh.
In 2004, I don't. I do not.
Oh, yeah. 2004, the Northeast grid went out from Michigan all the way to New York City, completely wiped, no power for 4 days. It was the craziest and wildest experience that I've.
That must not have happened down here then.
No,
I don't have a memory of that, unless it was on a different timeline or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a different timeline or dimension.
Yeah, that's very possible. The only thing I remember losing power for in Virginia was hurricanes and ice storms. So neither of which we've been kind of lucky with over the last decade or so. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on there. But yeah, we haven't had to deal with that, but I know it's a constant threat. And I know that recently there's been lots of coronal mass ejections that have been going
one
out.
of our favorite terms.
Yeah. And,
that and mud cracks.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I don't know. I just feel like it's something that somebody in government would have taken seriously at some point, but it's a lot of money. I understand. I think it'd be hundreds of millions of dollars, or maybe even, I imagine at this point, that's back in the 90s. Now it's probably billions of dollars to kind of redo our grid, but I feel like it's probably worth putting the money into.
Yeah. Amber said that she was in Michigan for that outage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it was like I said, it was wild. I remember driving around this, and you think of the first day, not a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Power goes out.
Yeah.
But for it to hit 5 days, they still didn't know. And I don't know how long it took for everyone to eventually, because they still had to bring the grid back up in certain time frames. But yeah, it was spooky. It was really spooky.
I bet.
Yeah, there's
nobody
Nothing.
had power. Nothing's done. Yeah, that would be weird.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
And there's also like the thing. There's like a step process of losing power. It's like, oh, the power went out. All right, we're good, And then and then the night comes around. And it's like, oh, we're gonna light candles and we'll play board games. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And we're gonna make something on the fire. Then the next day it's like, oh, we still lost power, but we're gonna use cook out on a fire or something or grill out, and it's still no big deal. When you start hitting that third day and that fourth day, it starts to get real, really quick.
I can't flush the toilet. Can't take a shower.
I mean that's a lot of it. It's not like, and it was the middle of summer. It was like July, so it's not like there was any warning to go make sure you have toilet paper or cash, right? And so you couldn't buy things. Gas. I mean, it was no, you couldn't buy gas. Yeah. You couldn't buy food or groceries if you didn't have cash on you. Yeah. Because none of this. Yeah. It was a weird experience. Twilight Zone.
Just imagine now, nobody has cash. Oh, everybody would be screwed.
Yeah. You couldn't do. That's what I'm saying. Everything is because I think
at least in 2004 there was a good chance you had a $20 bill on you or something.
Yeah. I can't remember what hurricane it was.
Not now.
Whatever tropical storm we had that flooded Richmond. But we lost power for 4 or 5 days. And the same thing happened. After a few days, all of a sudden you saw people selling gallons of water at the gas station, just in the parking lot for $10 a gallon. And that's back in $2,004 or something. Who knows what that would be now? $30 for a gallon of water.
Yeah.
It gets really quick. So hopefully someone will champion that cause at some point because it's just sitting out there for the waiting. So let's get to what we were talking about. So I guess the best way to start most of these conversations is from the beginning. So talking about all these things you've accomplished and all these things that you're doing, how did you kind of get started in that?
Well, there's kind of two starting points in the story.
Okay.
That I kind of always like to talk about. And the one is I've had my gifts my entire life. I was born with them. I grew up with them. They caused me issues. I didn't realize that they were what was causing me some of the issues until I was an adult. But the thing that really started and led me to sitting here with you or other people that I sit down with or the literal clients that I work with was just over 4 years ago now, October 9th, 2019 was my first day without a drink in this last streak. And so getting sober, deciding that I was no longer going to have a active relationship with alcohol was how this all started. Really from a professional perspective. Yeah.
And you said that was in October 2019?
Yeah, 4 years ago this past Monday. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And isn't it interesting that it happened right before 2020?
I was just going to talk about that.
So I know, there's a lot of things when I look back, my kind of move towards that even started, 2 years prior to that. But I've reflected back many times, and I'll tell you a little sad tidbit here. I don't think I would have made it through the pandemic if I hadn't have. And as a matter of fact, my partner at the time, also an addict, did not choose to recover and passed away this past April.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, no, I appreciate it very much. It's a blessing to be a medium sometimes, but it was the first person that I actually was close to cross over. So that's been a wild experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this, not only did that happen, right? This is the crazy thing. I decided to get sober. I also was running a small business consulting company at the time. And I had my own little office. I have a corporate job, but I had my own little office that I ran it out of. I decided for whatever reason to let go of the office and built an office in my basement. So that's where all this is right now in my house. I mean, all of these things, no clue by the time, the pandemic. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. There's so many stories like that of people. And it's there had to be divine intervention, that whether people were aware of it or not, because there's just so many story after story after story of like that. It's like leading you up to, hey, this is going to happen and you need to do this. Yeah. Divine timing.
It completely 100%. And I am grateful and thankful for it every day, because my life is beautiful in a way that I couldn't even fathom. I couldn't even have imagined. Yeah, I could not even have imagined.
Yeah. Well, give yourself plenty of credit too. I mean, we're giving the divine plenty of credit. Like, thanks for giving us all these nudges, but it doesn't work unless you listen to the nudges. So give yourself a pat on the back. Because you listened.
I do appreciate that very beautiful reflection. I did, but to me, the gratefulness is that timing. Right? Like that timing, because I had relapsed 3 times the year prior. Wow. Right. And so there was something that timing was finally, because I really could not imagine. And I know many people whose relationship became horribly dysfunctional with alcohol when the pandemic ended up just really bad. So yeah, I don't think it's I don't believe in coincidences, but I don't think it's a surprise that you started to see some of the sober or the non-alcoholic movement kind of come in. Yeah.
So many things happened during COVID times. Yeah. It was a horrible, terrible time, but it was also a very transformative time in a lot of good ways for people and the planet.
Yeah, well, we talked about this a little bit recently. Like, I think I was taking one of our daughters to go. I think it was when I was taking one of our daughters to go clothes shopping, and I realized we were like it's like Target. It's a mainstream store like Target, or it's something like Kohl's or something like that. And there were all kinds of shirts with like spiritual slogans on them. And I was like, man, where is this coming from?
They estimated the growth rate. I forget what the actual, because, being in the market and everything, the estimated growth rate in the industry that they actually could tie us to, which is like this alternative medicine industry, is like ridiculous. Like over the course between now and 2029, like 17%, this like major indicator, it's like, mind blowing what they're projecting. And I don't think it's a surprise. Those that, walk a spiritual path know that, lots of us in this universe have been called to awaken, lots.
And every day it's just more and more and more and more and more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's time, people. Take the cloth off your eyes. Okay, no, never mind. I wanted to ask, let's not get on a soapbox. Can you tell us some of your childhood experiences?
My childhood. Do you want? So there's a couple of things. There's one incident that I kind of joke about. As a psychic, I do have some telepathy. I can do some mind reading. So as a child, I got myself into a lot of trouble by opening, and I didn't realize that why people were so angry, right? Because I would respond and react based upon the thoughts and the feelings that I would feel or hear on them. And so it really weirded people out. So that was a really unfortunate one. As a kid though, when I was around the age of 6, I actually had to do some past life regression for this. I actually did some little sunshine channeling sessions for this. I channeled the little version of myself to find some of this stuff out, because there's this blank time in my childhood that I had no real understanding of these gifts. My spirit guides took my gifts from me around the age of 6. They refused to allow me to continue to see spirit and talk to spirit, because my parents became pregnant with a 3rd child and decided they didn't want it.
Oh.
And so they did not. I was so profoundly playing with spirits, literally hanging out. And some of my only friends were spirits at that point, that they knew that and I mean, I have since had these other like regressions come through just of this life of what it was like for my parents for me to respond, because talking about this like yeah. So you know, you just and I've talked to so many more adults around their experiences with these gifts when they've recognized them, and there's so much. I've had this interesting conversation with one of my clients around how the trauma, like how literally because it's so innocent to us as children, it's so innocent. Like we have no clue that, like I didn't know until I was 16 years old that every single person in this world didn't lucid dream. Or like people laughing at me when I told them about lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you can't like move in your dreams? And they're like, no. And I was like, I just like in shock,
Yeah.
right? And so I've talked to so many other psychics, whether they want to identify with that title or not. They have the gifts that, you know, and they have literally experienced trauma because people don't know how to respond to them. They don't know how to react to them. And so, you know, as much as I'm like kind of like bah humbug that my gifts were taken away at that point, like there was a reason. And I would guess there's a lot of things that I did not have to go through. And they absolutely had my best interest.
It feels like they were protecting you.
Oh man.
And your family from a lot more turmoil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you were first mentioning about that too, it was like I was thinking about the impacts it would have had you on as a child, but the impacts of you discussing that with your family could have been even more traumatic, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd already been freaking my dad out. I didn't know this until like, you know, like I said, I'm an adult, so I see like but I'd already been freaking my dad out because I'd been talking to his father for a while.
Yeah.
And so it was just very strange. My dad, not very acceptive of the gifts. My mom is very gifted, but he shut those down.
Oh yeah.
Like right down, and like made her feel like gaslighted the heck out of her. So she felt incredibly crazy and had been institutionalized.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was a child, like a number of times. You want to hear the wildest story? You want to hear how like crazy this is?
Of course.
Yes. I was probably like maybe 7 or 8 years old. My mom used to work for this company by the name of Turchin. They're no longer in existence. And she was an executive admin for one of the big wigs, one of the like presidents of the company. And I'm so little, so I don't recall this story until my mom tells me about it many, many moons later. At that time, I knew my mom was put into the hospital because she had asthma. That's what I was told. Well, what ended up happening is my mom was determined that they had tapped and wired her phones and were listening in on her conversations in order to find enough information to lay her off.
Ooh.
Right. And she's telling my dad this, and it like, and so my dad's picking it up as paranoia, gaslighting her, and ends up having her committed. Forward, let's go 22 years old. I'm 22 years old. So we're like, what, 15 years later. Okay. I'm looking for a job. I walk into a company and I accept a receptionist position for this company called, my mom worked for QQC, for Turchin. Lo and behold, as I'm looking through all the documentation, it's the same damn company.
Oh, wow.
I end up talking to the controller finally and talking about how this was my mom. And the controller, it tells me, I've got to tell you something.
Oh, God.
I feel horrible about this. I felt horrible about this, for the last 15 years. When your mom worked here, I was asked to tap her phone call, to pick up her phone calls and listen in order to. I was dropped, floored, right, floored at this. Like, oh my God! And I remember telling my mom. We didn't even tell my dad because there's all that would have done. But
yeah.
But I remember telling my mom, and she was just like, I knew it. And I have no idea how many other times he did that kind of stuff to her, right? But that was like pure validation.
Yeah.
I
How
couldn't even
terrible that she had to go through all that. But what amazing validation for her to know that she was right all that time.
Oh my. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell her, I have said to her many times that, you know, she has the same gifts and all that kind of stuff. And this runs in the family. My grandmother was a medium while she was still alive. But it's very unfortunate that she's not been able to actually lean into them and feel what they like, the real true benefit that they can bring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been quite a bummer. She still can't to this day. They're still married. Actually, tomorrow they celebrate their 45th wedding anniversary.
And he hasn't changed any.
Nope.
No.
No.
That's a shame.
Nope.
Well, one day he'll find out all about it.
Yeah, when he crosses onto the other side and he comes back and he's like, well, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you are.
Then he'll be coming to visit you, being like, oh, sorry. Should have listened.
Like, no, you got some boundaries to set with you.
Yeah. So
Spirit on the other side.
Spirit guides take your gifts when you're about 6 to save you from a lot of heartache. And then you talk about kind of the second was the reawakening of that in 2019, or was there stuff in between there?
No, so I was raised Catholic, and I just always it ruffled my feathers a lot. I didn't understand it. I remember talking to my priests or like the nuns and like asking questions and being so frustrated they didn't have answers for me. You know, like and so I was probably 16 years old when I'd walked into my first metaphysical shop. And it was at that point that I really started to research witchcraft and, you know, tarot, right? I mean, I had no clue at that point that there was all these other divinatory like means or anything of the nature, but tarot was the first thing that I picked up. And, you know, just reading and exploring, right, really was all that it was. I had a couple of friends that I would, you know, pull a couple cards for and stuff and try the Celtic cross, you know, the same spread I did for like 10 years because I didn't realize that. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know. But I was 19. It was like the real kind of like, whoa, there's something else here. I was 19 and my grandmother had passed. She'd passed away about a year prior to this. My grandfather had asked me if I'd wanted to go on vacation with him and some other family members and to Maui. 10 days. Nice. And he would pay for the airfare in my hotel, and I just had to pay for my food and, you know, any type of spending money. And so I was like, heck yeah, sign me up. Went, and while we were out there, I had mentioned to an aunt of mine that I thought that I could see spirit and talk to spirit. And as we sat around in that circle, as I said, my grandmother is a medium. Well, she used to refer to it as talking to the angels, you know, devout Catholic woman.
Yeah.
Talking to the angels. And they used to do it as a family. Like some of the, like my grandmother and some of her, you know, my mom and her sisters and the daughters and things. A number of them would do these like mediumship circles with my grandmother, right? Like how cool. I never got to witness one though. So I was always very, very bummed about that one. But my aunt was like, do you want to give it a try? And so it was like me, a couple aunts, a couple of cousins all sitting around. And mind you, like, I'm kind of a hermit in my own regard. So like, I love everyone, but I'm also like, you know, I appear very private. So it's not like I knew, even though we're family, I really didn't know these folks very well. And I proceeded to reiterate the similar like spirit guides that I guess my grandmother had introduced to these folks already. Boyfriends or like friends, childhood friends of some of my aunts that had come through that I would have had no clue about. Like all of these things and just being in awe. In awe. I mean, I still am in awe most of the time. You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's like, oh my God, I am a medium. It's like every time, I'm like, holy crap, like that happened? Wow. Like, did you see what I just did? Like, this was cool. You know?
I completely understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of where it started. And from that point forward, I was just, I was really lost in the matrix. I dabbled. I did some of the witchcraft. I read tarots. I lost a couple of dates because I mentioned that I was a psychic medium, and then I proved that I was a psychic medium, and that really weirded them out.
Well, good riddance to them. They weren't meant to be. Yeah.
I know. So yeah, when I was younger, I definitely still did a lot of the stuff, but the sobriety and stepping into recovery, for folks that have ever been around or been in recovery or been with anybody that's had to be, they talk about it is a spiritual program. It is like you are recognizing that there is something else that is out there. And yeah, I mean, the first 90 days, the hardest probably thing that I've ever gone through, but getting past that 90 days and starting to wake up a little bit and see things a little bit differently. And oh yeah. So yeah, the gifts have been amazing at having let that poison go.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I was going to say, it's sad that you didn't get to experience the talking to the angels with your grandmother, but I almost feel like your grandmother is the one that like set it up so that you could have that experience. Like it's like her passing kind of unlocked it all.
She is still one of my primary guides. I leverage her with a lot of my readings when I find people that are having a difficult time. They've not necessarily transitioned in the way that they can. Like I literally work with her. The way I explain it to the clients is what I sit here and do for you. I bring you comfort here. She goes and she does with the spirits on the other side.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean,
She
I
sounds
dig
like
it.
a wonderful woman. We love a grandma around here.
Yeah, we
All
got
the grandmas.
lots of
We got a lot of
grandmas.
grandmas. And we love them all.
Yeah.
99% of them.
At this point, we have some legendary grandmas.
We have legendary grandmas. We do. So you mentioned
so
a little
interested.
bit. one of our favorite grandmas is Grandma Lucy. She was buried in a gold bathing suit, and she always makes me use pyrite when I go to bring her in. And her whole family is part of our crew. We call them the Lucy Gang. And they're actually one of the ones in Michigan, too. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes, Luce, we're talking about Grandma Lucy. Legendary grandma. She even has an emote. It says Lucy Gang, and it has a picture of her on there. It's great. So witchcraft. I noticed on your website that you have a specific, there's a specific kind of witchcraft that you kind of associate with. And even though I do all of this woo-woo stuff, witchcraft has never been something that I really got into. So I don't know very much about any of it.
Oddly enough, kind of oddly.
Yeah.
Because we've been together for quite a while, Sunshine. We got together in high school, but we were always into horror and all kinds of scary, weird, spooky,
paranormal, supernatural stuff.
We were always in the books a million or whatever, looking at all of the stuff.
The New Age section.
Yeah, we just, for some reason, I don't know. I've bought some books, but we were never quite got initiated into it. So tell us a little bit about that.
My question was, what is the specific kind of witchcraft that you are associated with, and how is it different from the other types?
Yeah, I'm curious. What does it say that's making you pick that up on there? Yeah.
I think it was on your About Me
was
page.
it the, and then the, yeah.
Because I do refer to myself as an eclectic witch.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Yeah. So are you just mean you pick up different things from different types of witchcraft?
Yeah. Okay. So I am kind of like a rebel through and through. I don't know if you guys are familiar at all with human design, but if you are, I always like to share it. I have this heretic energy in my chart, right? And so I don't do well to anything being prescribed to me. I'm just
me neither. Maybe I have that as well.
You might. I'm kind of like a middle finger in the air. Don't tell me what to do. I do what I want type of person.
Yes. I get that.
And well, the other thing too is like, and this is part of my own personal philosophy is our connection to the divine, our connection to source, our connection to our spirit guides. That's the raw, honest to goodness truth of what you should be following. And so I use a lot of like, what should I do? And I will like, literally, they'll like, my library, they'll take me over to the library and they'll take me, have it grab a book and then they'll tell me to where to pull the book from. Or, I'll find something and there's a website I end up, right? They lead me to what I need to do. So it is absolutely eclectic. I could be doing candle magic. I could be doing, I could just be doing affirmations. I could be doing literal full blown spell. I do a new moon ritual every single month. I lead my, in essence, I even hate, like, I'm so I even hate using the word coven, but I have a coven that I lead. And so we do ritual every month and it's whatever. Like I even tell them, I'm like, I have a framework for how I instruct and lead, but I allow like the divine and the universe to tell me what I need to bring to the table and how it needs to come to the table. So
That actually makes a lot of sense after I said what I said. I think that's because that's one of the reasons we never really use those words is because like I've always fought against being anything that had a label
as a title, really. Yeah.
Like even though I might do stuff that's associated with witchcraft, I never wanted to call it witchcraft because I don't want to be lumped under that umbrella or something like that, I guess. So I can completely identify with kind of what you're saying.
I don't like things that have too many rules and expect you to do it a certain way. Like, I just can't do it.
Dogma.
So, yay.
Yeah.
Yay for us.
Yeah.
Rule breaking, follow our own path, people.
And there's so much of that. Like, it's like, leave this one institution and then join our institution because our rules are better, and it's just like, I don't want to be in any institution. Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's totally not. And I get it. It's interesting. Because I have shied away for quite some time of actually like proclaiming that I was a witch and like it being a big portion. And like, once again, spirit just takes you where you need to go. And all of a sudden I started testing some things in my ad copy. And I'm like, you're kidding me. This is what everybody wants me to refer. I'm like, okay. So I literally had to like do this own spell work to allow myself to like let go of this hesitation of referring to myself as a witch. Right. And I have my own like little short podcast that I do. And a couple of episodes ago, I talked about why. And I don't like labels either, right? But they allow connection. Because if I go ahead in a room of 5,000 people and I hold up a gigantic sign that says where are all my witches at, I'm my people.
Yes.
But if I just hold up a sign and it's blank.
Yeah.
So I'm not the biggest fan of the labels either, but it allows for people to connect.
You're
and
right.
Yeah,
they serve a purpose to a certain degree. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's just the association of dogma and layers and layers and layers of hundreds of thousands of years of garbage that are placed on certain words makes it hard to use certain words. Like we had this huge blowout about it in stream a few weeks ago about the word prayer. Like so many of us don't want to use the word prayer because we associate it with religion. And those of us who've had negative issues with religion feel like we can't use the word prayer, but prayer is for everybody because all it is asking for help, setting intentions, connecting
it's
to
a little
divine.
spell.
It's all the same thing.
Manifesting.
It's a little spell. Yeah.
We took it back. We're taking it back, and we're saying we can also use prayer.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny. You heard me say I was raised Catholic. I have a lot of folks that gravitate towards me because of that particular story of walking out of this Christian religion. But I use prayer. I love Jesus. I don't have a problem with any of that. Like no shame, no judgment. I will talk to you about all the archangels. We could talk about whatever it is. My biggest thing has always been when it comes to like living as a human in this crazy world, the way that we find happiness is like through embracing our spirituality. And I don't care what it is. All I encourage people, just believe in something. Even if the something is nothing, just believe that nothing exists, right?
Yeah.
And stay true to it, right? Like just whatever it is, just believe that there is something. Believe it, just believe in whatever it is that you want to choose, right? Now, don't get me wrong, if I don't agree with them, I might hang out with you, but I ain't going to judge you for what you believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that kind of comes down to the, you know, I know it's been said a million times, but there's so many different belief systems, and all of them have some little part right, at least, you know. And I think prayer is one of those. And you know, we had a comment in here from Pieces of Wonderland. He was talking about it cracks me up that people who pray think meditation is bad, and it's almost like a need for this realization that prayer, meditation,
it's all the same thing, people. It's all the same.
Spells, ritual, manifestation. You're all experiencing the same thing under a different name. You know.
I say this to so many people that I'm floored that the Catholic Church can be against like witchcraft. What do you think Mass is every week?
Yeah.
I mean, like, really, if you've ever sat in like, and I mean, I've sat in a number of, but like the Catholic Mass, literally, you like have to walk up and accept the body of, I mean, yeah,
especially the Catholics. They seem like the most magical of the bunch.
Yes.
With all of their weird rituals and stuff, and
all of it.
Yeah,
you know,
garb they have to wear. And,
the bones of saints, and like they even got like ingredients for the potion. You know, they got stuff to toss in there. But you know, it's you know, and you could get into the whole conversation too of ritual, because I think for the most part, we discussed quite a bit about ritual not being necessary, but ritual being something that can help the process. Because in order to have prayer, in order to manifest, in order for the, you know, to believe in what you're doing, sometimes ritual is necessary to help foster that sense of something happening. And so you're seeing that with prayer also at a church service. You're seeing this ritual that allows that person to believe and to remove the self-doubt. It's kind of the way that I've looked at that.
I always like to think of like a little bit of ritual too, of, you know, space and time, everything exists all at once, right? In that concept. And so if you're doing ritual in this like linear fashion and you're doing it the same way every single time, like, you know, Father, like the cross, or anything, like that ritual of how you, like every time you have now accentuated whatever that work is, multiply it by every single time that you have ever done this ritual. Right? All of that intention all at once. When I get really lazy, for those of you that are like a big fan of lazy magic tricks, I just pause for a moment and imagine myself in whatever dimension that it's happening. Take a deep breath and just take that magic from that moment.
I love it.
So,
yeah, I never thought about that.
Lazy magic.
If all times happen at the same time, then all the other times you did it is also happening right now.
Yep.
I love
That's
it.
the one I tap into.
Lou said that she thinks that you should be her BFF, just so you know.
Let's be BFFs. I love BFFs. I love people, and it's so funny that I met like this hermit, that I have this, and people like always tell me, they're like, you're so busy. And I'm like, really not. I just pretend like I'm really busy most of the time. I have a facade of really busy. But yeah, I love people so much. So I would love a new best friend. Thank you.
There you go.
Take you up on it.
Luce lives not that far from you, so maybe. So you have to go find sunshine, Luce. Yes, and Luce also fosters cats, so you also have the cats in common. 5 kitties. They always have like a bazillion cats in their house. Yeah.
I that is amazing. I love that. So yes, new best friend.
Yay. Okay.
Pretending to be busy is the best way to keep people away, says Hoaxers. I feel like there's a lot of that. That's the way I feel. I tell Jenny all the time that I'm like the laziest busy person I know. Like I always have something to do, but I feel like I do way less than everybody else, but I feel like I never have like a spare day. Like I'm always doing some. I got something to do. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do it with the least amount of gusto as possible, I guess. Anyway,
busiest lazy person.
yeah, busy lazy person. Yeah.
Okay, so I saw another one of the titles that you had put in about yourself was Soul Healer. What is that about?
Probably some of my favorite work with clients is more past life related work. So I open up the Akashic records, I'm not positive that every psychic knows or recognizes this, but if you're a psychic, you're literally getting your information from the Akashic records. Like that's where it exists. And so I do a lot of work within the records, depending upon what somebody is sitting down with me. I'm often called to do healing within that that journey, that whatever we're exploring. And so that is the representation of the soul healer. I'm not here just to heal you from a temporary perspective. I'm not hearing just this lifetime and your ailments. If you got like a headache, I'm not just making that go away. I'm actually looking to see what ailments may be impacting you, like your soul, and bringing that healing to your soul. And so that your journey moving forward is a lot lighter and brighter.
That's wonderful. So how do you experience the Akashic records?
Try to ask me that in another way. What do you mean by how do I experience them?
Like, do you visualize like being there and seeing it and like going to specific places and getting like what's the way that you see it or feel it or
the experience goes to me. That's why I wanted to make sure you were asking. That's what I thought. But so my strongest psychic ability is my clairvoyance. All of them are pretty good, but like the clairvoyance. And so it typically starts with shows up as it looks like a book, literally a book. We find the actual section within that book. And then once that section is found, it's very theatrical. They actually take me right into it like it's an actual movie. And from there, it'll usually be that I'll start being the bystander and watching it. And then at some point, as I start asking questions to explore really what's going on and what the experience is, they'll slide me into the main character. Right. And so then I'll
from their perspective.
Yeah.
Wow. Frosty, it sounded like you wanted to make a comment or have a question.
No, not for that.
No? Okay.
I guess the one thing I would say is it's interesting for the Akashic records. It seems like there's a lot of different ways to access it. Like it's from my very small amount of experience or hearing people talk about it, it seems like everyone kind of experiences the Akashic records a different way. Is that true?
I have had let me put it to you this way. Every other person that I have ever talked to that accesses literally talks about has gone through some kind of certification on how they are told to do it.
Yeah.
So the way I did it, I talked to I had my Akashic records read once by someone, and I just watched, and then I went and I was like, "We're gonna try this. Tell me how to do this." And they're like, "Whoop!" And I was like, "That was cool." So
yeah.
No, I do think there are a number of folks, because I mean, and Jenny, I don't know what you think about what your perspective. I mean, even Frosty, what your perspective, but like a lot of people struggle to have the confidence to like accept these gifts and like just accept that what you're being told or shared with is like the divine truth that you're being given. Like so many people want to second guess, and so for whatever reason, I don't do that. And so I felt comfortable to go in and access, but I think many other individuals go through the path of asking somebody else to tell them how to do it. And, it goes back to that comment to the ritual. I believe the same thing. All space and time exist all at the same time. So does all existence happen. So we are everyone. The collective conscious means Jenny, at some point, I'm also you right now. Frosty, I'm also you at some point, right? And so in that particular regards, from the Akashic records, I think some of these folks you tap into that ritual of accessing, and so it's easier for them. It's easier for them to just trust that somebody else has set something up rather than, find the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that about the second guessing. And see, the problem that I have, Sunshine, is I'm a Gemini. So I very much I will practice these things and do these things, and I'll have an experience and I'll talk to Jenny. I'm like, I can't believe this crazy experience I had. It was so amazing. And then the next day, my logical side kicks in and I'm totally like, well, I don't know if that's really what, I mean, there's, could it really even happen? I don't understand how this is, and so I think that's the thing that holds me back a little bit. I'm getting better at it. We're working on it, but I think that's what happens to some people.
Can I share? Do you want me to share what I just heard as you were kind of saying this?
Yes, sure.
So that whole piece of, that has its purpose. So I don't know if your career or something of that nature requires that skill set to always have this critical mind, this critical, view into things. And so it's all you would really need to do is talk with your own guides and state, cool, but when it comes to this, I don't want those. I don't want that logic applied. I don't want, and it'll change if that's what you truly want. It has the ability to change. Yeah. Yeah,
and you're right.
But it has a purpose.
I'm a historian, so that's where that comes from. I have. Yes. I've always been a dreamer, and I've always loved the fantasy aspect of things, but especially when I was going through college, it was really a struggle for me. I had to kind of teach myself. All right, we have to have some kind of physical evidence to be able to back up the argument that you're making. And so I think that does get stuck with me sometimes.
Yeah.
For sure. So you nailed it. There you go.
You got a gold star.
Was already like, yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're they're basically, they're like your soul made a very intentional choice to have that Gemini mentality, very intentional. There's other purposes beyond, but yeah, very intentional is what they said. Yep.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, in my medium classes, number one rule of mediumship is don't doubt yourself. Yeah. And it's hard not to, but that's the thing you have to not do. You have to trust what you're getting, because really it's not trusting yourself almost, it's trusting spirit. You're trusting spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're purely, I always like to think sure, we're a medium, but if you think about a medium, if you think even about in art, what does a medium represent? It's something that you're using to create. It's something tool. Being used, right? And so it's and I've told plenty of people, my commitment is I will always share what I'm told, right? Which it puts you in a very awkward situations.
Sometimes you have to tiptoe around things and reword things a little so that it's not
Yep. But it's definitely
So back to the Akashic Records. So the way that I had tried to I'd taken a little workshop about it. I never got a certification or anything. I'd been there a couple times. I'd seen what it looked like. But just recently, in the past month or so, some of our readings have taken me to the Akashic Records, going into somebody's library, finding a specific book, opening the book, and then I see it like a movie. It's exactly the way that you explained it. And that's what I was asking for, because it's are we experiencing the same thing in the same way? Because it's just validation that what we're experiencing is exactly what it's supposed to be.
So I would love for you to keep doing and us to chat a year now again about what your experiences are. So it's been about 2 years since I've been intentionally opening up the records, and they show. So here's the thing: when I first started, I wasn't working with very deeply magical or spiritual people. It was just some, spiritual folks, but on a journey, not in the journey.
Yes.
And I would show up in these the first thing my guides do is they put me into a library, and there's a handful of what I call generic libraries. There's different scenes. right? And I have no rhyme or reason that I've been told why. But as I started working with more deeply magical spiritual folks, I'd be taken to private lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I was taken to like a castle that they had kept their books in,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to ask. I was like told I had to ask for permission, vocal permission to walk into a locked door to be able to. I was blown away, and so I'm like, finally talking. I'm like, what is this? And my guides are like, these folks have taken the action to protect their records. So
nice.
one of the things that I actually had started to be called to do when I open up records or do big Akashic Records activations, I lock them down for the folks afterwards.
Oh, nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never even thought about that because I hadn't experienced that yet. Yeah.
Well, so there are some shady folks out there.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Always.
And if you open the records and you have access to them, you can find out how to torture people, what their biggest fears are. Like, I mean, there's some wicked things that you can do.
Yeah. No bueno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen mine. My Akashic record room is like its own little library, and it has very intricately carved wood around the top. Our friend Luce, who we've been talking about, I got to see their Akashic record room. It's in the basement in a cave-like space that looks like an egg. Very interesting. So yeah, there's definitely all kinds of different manifested, created spaces for your own personal libraries. It's amazing.
I'll share this kind of like little tidbit that has been really fascinating that I've done with them. When I do like an intentional Akashic record, sometimes I'm called into the books in the middle of a reading, but when somebody actually purchases an Akashic record, their first time, I'll ask for their book to be delivered. I have these crows that actually bring the book back.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the books are different. And so I will describe the books, and I often find that the description that I have on the book validates for the person that it's related to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So once upon a time, I was like, this is so strange. I'm like, this came back as a binder. And I described the binder, and this girl's like, takes her camera and turns it.
And it was there.
It was sitting on the desk next to her. I was like, okay, so this is your book.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny.
It was her Trapper Keeper from 1989.
Pretty much. New Kids on the Block, right?
Yeah.
There's something that kind of popped up when you were talking about that a second ago about kind of being able to use some of that information for bad. And I only want to ask it because it's something that I actually haven't ran into very much in the spiritual world that we've been in. There's so much of a positive and understanding that you put good in, you get good out kind of thing. But, I'm from a time where I can remember the Satanic Panic and, the occult being blamed for lots of different horrible actions that were taking place. How have you run into any instances, or how prevalent do we think there is people with, like, I don't know, practicing the left-handed path or really out there trying to do harm? Do we think it's a significant portion? Is it something that we've been hearing about at all?
So there's a couple of ways that you could look at it. It's not like people are out there, maliciously like going like, I want to, take down. They're like not. What they do is very often they have very self-centered and egotistical desires that have no requirement to pay attention to how somebody else is going to be impacted. And I have someone's program that I joined last year. And I mean, there was 27 of us that joined, many, many, many thousands of dollars to join this program. And the glamour that this individual puts on so that like they appear is so strong that even though we've literally shown some of these folks that like came out of the program with us where they've literally been abused, and they're still like, but I want to stay around them. And I mean, it's like, completely. So like, it's not always like they're going to take down a bank or something of that nature. But here they have these individuals under this spell, addicted to the chaotic energy that they feed them. And like, these people are just like disillusioned. And so, you know, there are some of us that are kind of outside of it looking at it and going like, how did like, wow,
Yeah,
you know, oh my God. Right. So, you know, does it happen? You know, is it something you have to worry about? I don't think the like casual, and casual might even be a little bit of an insult. I don't think an individual that would describe themselves as woo-woo would be somebody that would really have. But the further you get down into like the real magical workings, and really start like getting into practice and around some. Yes, I have. Yeah. It has not been the first time. She's not the only one that I've run into that, you know, has kind of been in this space. There's actually a Netflix documentary about the woman. Her name was Nicole something, but she was the big like kind of like Ohm or something like this. It was this really crazy, turned out to be this really crazy spiritual cult. And lo and behold, this woman that I had no clue at the time, but the woman whose program I took was part of it. I mean, like, yeah. So it's like, it does exist. There are people. And the very unfortunate thing is those individuals that are in this low vibrational state, you know, that are already still suffering from things like addiction or shame or guilt spirals or, you know, fear of abandonments and things of that nature, they're going to be pulled in. This person literally expressed that their leadership book is the 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this book?
No, I'm not.
No.
I'm not.
Oh, horrifying. Horrifying book.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, they're just interested in power and control.
Yeah. Well, that's what I say that the title kind of gives it away.
That's what the title, yeah.
When you hear the term power, this different than like, say, manifesting or something like that.
No, and it's this is actually also sold in some circles as a business book, this 48 Laws of Power. And
of course it is.
Yeah. So my ex bought it for me because the job that I left, I was with him for about a year before I resigned from this position that I was miserable in. It really started this path. And he had recognized that a former CEO of mine, he was like, you do like everything I would bitch and complain about. He's like, he finally bought me this book. He goes, this guy is doing all of these plays.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you need to educate yourself so you understand how he's coming after you. Yeah. And I was like, oh my. And so the moment I started to feel how that stuff happened last year, I was like, there is something going on. And then when I found out she admitted, I wasn't on it was admitted that was the book. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Parted ways.
Erica has a question for you. Has there been someone who works in this world who ended up surprising you as someone who is actually following the left-handed path, but at first seemed cool?
I mean, this particular individual, I had no clue. I'd been a part of their like program for probably about a real small, just casual program for about 2 years at this particular point. And so that was a bit of a surprise in that regards. There's not really anyone else. And like, I want to be very cautious because if folks heard that they actually practice the left-hand path, that doesn't equate necessarily to like just evil and destruction.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's typically, people would identify it as a much more selfish form of magic. It's not all like love and light in that regards for the whole world and peace. But it's not evil. There are some folks that would even consider some of the like Masonic lodges and things of that nature left-handed paths.
It's the service to self versus the service.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think how I was introduced to some of this stuff originally when, because, typically the way you first hear about these things kind of can be through like the more things that are considered occult and not spiritual necessarily, even though those things kind of cross over, but like Crowley, for instance, or something like that, and like do as thou wilt, kind of. But that doesn't and I don't necessarily disagree with that to a certain extent, because if I do as I want to do, I'm probably not going to intentionally harm anyone. I'm going to be doing things for my self-benefit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm out to like destroy somebody else's life. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to manifest what I want to manifest for myself, which I think is right, Jenny. That's definitely working a selfish reason and not working for the betterment of all, but still.
Yes.
There is, so I've actually talked with him, Aleister Crowley.
Oh, interesting.
And so he is one of the people that she follows. And I've actually done a lot of studying about him. I'm trying to figure out the exact statement. But I asked him at some point when he showed up, because it's something like love is the law, love under will. I should know it. But the whole statement, like this whole sentiment is kind of around like, as long as you are always driving towards love, the like energetic vibration of love, you're on the path to enlightenment. That's Thelema. That's kind of like the whole concept there. The interesting thing that he had said to me is, I think it was like last year, probably right around this time that he showed up to me and we had this conversation. I was literally watching TV and he showed up. That was really weird. I was like, oh, okay. Hi. The conversation that he said, he didn't understand what love was. So in retrospect, he looked back and he's like, though I wrote it and its intentions were what he understands love to be now, that is not how he lived it.
I found it. It says, love is the law, love under will, for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect.
Yeah. So as long as we are doing like our, in this energetic of love, that was the whole sentiment. And it when you study Thelema and you start looking at it, it actually is very beautiful how it's spoken about. But let's be real, Aleister Crowley was a heroin addict, right? If you've ever known a heroin addict, any addict for one, but I've known a handful, the partner that passed they are a whole different breed. They are a whole different breed. And so, those are some of the conversations I've had. He's definitely has recognized that, and is not. Let me put it to this way: he's interested to see how people actually evolve the interpretation in the right way. He would love to see it happen, because there's a lot of really beautiful stuff in his text. Crazy stuff on some, but a lot of really beautiful stuff.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he's figuring some stuff out on the other side. Good for you, Aleister Crowley.
But I think some of that stuff can be kind of important to go back to. We talked about kind of like this being like a new age of spiritualism. New age. I guess there's another pun that I didn't mean to make. But we had the 60s and stuff like that. But I really don't know if we've had this big of a spiritualist movement since the turn of the last century. And so it's kind of interesting to go back and look at some of the people that were doing work then, because I almost feel like that's work we can build off now. Does that sound kind of correct?
I think you're spot on with that. You're reminding me. I think about a week and a half ago, I had this conversation with someone where you have a lot of this literature in the 1900s. So you've got from an Aleister Crowley to Carl Jung to a lot of these people. I mean, almost anyone that you name was involved, like from back then, was involved in the cult in some way, shape, or form. Like whether or not they just were, right? And there was a really big, huge, like the Enlightenment, port. A lot of it was written from the very patriarchal view of things, though. Right? It's not very common to find a book of in that nature written by a woman back then. There is supposedly one woman that actually did publish, but published under a man's name. And I don't remember the woman at this, but I have heard that that is the case. And so I believe that the universe is actually asking for those that know and understand the feminine energy to look back into that literature and now share the perspective of when we actually have combined the masculine and the feminine, what is the message now?
Yeah.
That's a good point, because I was going to say earlier, actually, just
you're pumping me up, sunshine.
Just to bring that, when you were talking earlier about people, when I was talking about the doubt, and we were talking about, people facing that was one thing I was going to bring up. Is one of the things that one of the reasons I sometimes struggle with doubt with working with magic now is because because I am a man, I have masculine energy and that stuff. And it seems so much to be in a place of feminine energy right now that it's like, man, can I, because all these mediums that I know and all these light workers I know and all these Reiki healers I know and all these people, and 90, maybe not 99%, but maybe 80% of them that I know are all women. And so it's like, is it even possible for me to do this? Whereas when you go back to what we were just talking about, it was very male dominated, at least in terms of who was being recognized for it anyway.
Yeah. And they it's funny because conversation I had recently too, the reason I believe they refer to themselves as magicians. Think about it. Instead, they didn't call themselves witches or warlocks or anything of that nature. They referred to themselves as magicians, right? What's another form of a magician? Sleight of hand, sleight of mind, right? So it's a way for them to kind of like hide a lot of this as well. Like when you start to read about what they did, they were doing all of the psychic stuff. They were doing all of the spiritual stuff, all of the chakra, all of the healings. They often disguised it in the language of alchemy. It's not magic, it's science, Like, okay, magic is science, but let's just...
Yes. It's all the same thing.
I just want to say, by the way, that I'm going with wizard. I want to make wizard the term that we can use for males moving forward.
I think you should. I think you should go with wizard.
Frosty bought himself a wizard hat, and I don't think that he has not brought it on stream yet. So you're gonna have to break it out soon, buddy.
Yeah, maybe Monday.
It's just Frosty the Wizard.
There we go. There's a new emote right there. Frosty the Wizard. There we go.
So
the Wizard of Frost. There we go.
The Wizard of Frost. That sounds, that's great. So we're talking about some of the other side of things, and from what I can tell in your bio and some things on your website, shadow work is like a big deal for you. For those of the people who are either listening now, which probably not many of them, but people who might be listening later, could you explain what shadow work is?
Yeah, I mentioned the name Carl Jung, right? So Jung coined the term shadow. So it is the belief that our psyche has things about ourselves that it actually represses. Right. So it's if you were to go look up and do any of the psychological research around the shadow or anything of that nature. From a witch's perspective, the way that we look at that is we want to go in and remove all that crap that we've repressed that is prohibiting us from wielding our crazy, wild, magical powers. Right. So that's in essence why we're going to be doing that shadow work. I also look at shadow work, though, as literally removing the things that are prohibiting you from living a beautiful life. So, in recovery, I pray for all of those, part of my third step prayers. I pray for all of those that are still suffering from addiction, whether that addiction is still drugs, alcohol, sex, chaos, violence, drama, shopping, food, sugar, whatever is robbing these individuals from living the life that they are meant to live. And so to me, I don't know that you can do any more serious shadow work than going through recovery, right? I really, you are having to go through things. I've experienced more shame, guilt, and fear, truly experienced it. I don't mean just waved at it while I shoved it in a pocket and pretended like it didn't exist, right? Truly experienced it, since I've been sober. right? And so, yeah, your shadow is bringing things maybe that have been bugging you, maybe that like you've been ignoring, maybe that you've been avoiding, bringing like even like maybe repeat bad behaviors, anything that feels like it's literally getting in your way of life. You dig into it and pull all of that nitty gritty pieces of it into the forefront and the light. And very often, just that act, just acknowledging it, is enough to integrate it and make its detriment go away.
So in a lot of ways, shadow work is essentially spiritual therapy.
You know, I jokingly say, you know, I've had people say like sometimes sessions with me feel like a therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
My therapist likes to have therapy sessions with me. I said, you need to start paying me next time.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I've been a leader in most of my corporate career for most of my life, and I've had people report to me, and I have this one gentleman that is actually a good friend of mine now that we don't work at that same place. And he jokes still to this day. He goes, I've been in with therapy with, you know, Sunshine since like 2007, right? Because like it's just I lead the same way. I'm like, how are you? What do you need? Like, where's your head at? You know, I'm like pulling things out. Like, you're struggling. Let's look at why. What is it? What's going on at home? You know. So yeah, definitely, shadow work is. I think that's a great way to kind of look at it. It's spiritual therapy. It's looking into the pieces of ourselves that we can't normally see, and making sure that nothing's ailing us, so to speak.
All right. So real quick, I want to just kind of do a quick reset here for everyone. We've had more people come in and join as we've been going along. So if you're joining us and you hopped in, we are talking with guest Sunshine, and we're talking about all kinds of things, including psychic mediumship and all kinds of spiritual stuff and work and witchcraft and all kinds of things. So if you have questions, feel free to throw them in chat. If you want to, I have I think probably like 5 channel points or something. You can highlight the message. That way we don't miss your message. Feel free to throw it in there. And also, we have it pinned at the top of chat. But if you're listening later to us on YouTube or in a podcast, make sure you go to sunshinereadings.com. And from sunshinereadings.com, you can find a lot of everything you're looking for with our guests tonight. Is there any other things that they need to check out if they're trying to find you online, Sunshine?
I normally say you can find everything on the website, but anytime I chat, I let people know too. You can always reach me on email, sunshine@sunshinereadings.com. I check all of my own email. I read all of them, and I love chatting with folks there, especially hearing stories about kind of how things are showing up for them in their world too. So
awesome.
Excellent. So check it out, sunshinereadings.com.
We have a question from our friend 713 is asking, how do your guides support you with your shadow work?
So I do, my guides are all the time. And so I'll give you an example of kind of, you know, one thing a little bit lately that I've been working on. You know, I talked about needing to embrace this whole identity and the label of the witch. And so that's been a lot of it. So them giving me these validations, giving me these reminders. You know, I told you about these ads, finding out that ads won. And so my guides will often lead me down the path of things that I need to be paying attention to, looking at, or exploring to like uncover maybe a deeper truth that I've not been paying attention to. So they're incredible. I mean, I'm very blessed. You know, not all psychics can even have don't always have the strong clairaudience. I can have full-fledged conversations with them. I can talk to them and hear them at any time. And so they also helped me, you know, when I find myself like surprisingly in a shadow, right? Because let's be real, sometimes we don't realize that something was repressed until somebody else brings it out. And so they are often there also to remind me to use like my somatic responses that I know of, you know, to regulate my nervous system, to not respond in a crazy way. You know, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I still have some, you know, low level anger issues at some point. Yeah. So like they're able to help me in that regards too, because shadow work is beautiful when you can do it proactively, right? But the truth is, a lot of people don't actually do it until they're in the middle of it. That they literally had something thrown in their face. So I think that's a great question. And, I think our guides can always, and I think most everyone's spirit guides probably are going to try to tell them before shit hits the fan or like a tower card gets pulled, so to speak.
Yeah.
But you have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
So, Erica did not have a question, but her comment made me think of a question. She said, Sunshine would be an epic guide for shadow work. So is that something, a service that you offer is helping people with their shadow work?
I absolutely do. So it's so funny because so many times it's like the way I kind of explain it, we're always going to be doing, if you're working with me, we're always probably going to be dealing with your shadows.
Part of it. It's part of everything.
It's a part of everything. The same thing with like the Akashic records. I find that people most often benefit working with me when they know they are ready to bring a change into their life. They want to live differently. And so when I recovered from alcohol, I look at recovery as recovering from anything that was robbing you from your happiness. Right?
Love it.
Anything that was robbing you from your happiness. Mm-hmm.
And we do have a question from you, Erica, now too. Sunshine.
Now she does have a question. Yeah. As I was asking a question she didn't ask.
Sunshine doesn't have to answer, but curious if she was given the name Sunshine at birth. It's such a rad name for the spiritual world, but I wonder if it was given at birth, did it always resonate, or did they name themselves this because it resonated more?
Yeah, I love the question, and I often do share this. So for those, I think we talked a little bit when I first came on and I shared with you guys, but the audience wouldn't have heard. So my birth given name is the same as the lovely Jenny. We share the same name. Birth given name is Jennifer. My parents, when I came into this world, named me Jennifer, and it's beautiful. I love the name. Don't have a problem with it. It was around 2007. My very best friend at the time had a little 3-year-old girl, and they lived a mile away. She had 3 kids, she had 2 kids, but the youngest was 3 at the time. And I was over there all the time. Well, things got really busy and I hadn't been there for a while. And all of a sudden her daughter comes up to her and starts asking, when is Auntie Sunshine coming over? When is Auntie Sunshine coming over? And her mom can't figure it out.
Who is Auntie Sunshine?
Her mom is like, I have no clue who this is. And so it was like still probably another 2 weeks. I show up and this little girl comes running into the kitchen. Auntie Sunshine. And I was like, I looked at her mom and she goes, oh my God, it's you. And I was like, okay, so it's stuck. I mean, my friends kind of, the kids just started calling me it. And my friends, like, most people say it suits me. Most people say that it suits me. So I always say Jennifer or Jen is my birth given name and Sunshine is my universe given name. Gifted to me from the little beautiful heart of a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Wow.
That's an excellent story.
And how appropriate for someone who's trying to shine their light into everybody else's shadows.
I don't do these things. The universe is brilliant. What can I say?
What did we say at the beginning? What you said at the beginning, there are no coincidences, right?
No coincidences.
None at all.
Yeah.
All right, Jenny, I know there was some other questions you had and some stuff you wanted to get into us, so I'll let you keep going here.
So sticking with the shadow work topic, what is your best advice for someone who wants to start working with shadow work?
The best advice. That's really hard because part of when I, mentor, coach, teach, work with clients, like it is very much individual based. Right. So automatically when I'm asking my guides, like, what's the best advice I can give right now? They're saying like, who's the person asking? Right. Is a bit of it. I would say, the very first thing, you just have to be willing to be honest that something's wrong, that something's off and not right. Right.
The awareness that something is off.
Yeah. Like that to me is it. And then, once you've kind of acknowledged that piece, exploring it is another story. Some people do really well exploring through journaling and like automatic writing. Some people work well with tarot card decks and using some like shadow work type of, pulls to look at their cards. Some people, let's be real, you might be better off working with someone, whether it's a therapist or a spiritual advisor, right? Because you actually need them to talk you through and kind of pull those things out. I would say, for anybody first, after the awareness, and if you didn't want to like jump off and go crazy, I'd probably recommend journaling to start. Just start exploring and seeing what you write. And what comes out. It's amazing sometimes, especially because it's handwriting. I don't mean like typing on a computer. I don't mean even voice memoing. I mean like literally handwriting, because it's an act so many of us don't do on a regular basis. You'll be surprised, and you may even watch the shadow pop when you hesitate to write the word on the page.
Yeah. When you don't want to admit it to yourself because you don't want to see it with your own eyes. Yeah.
Yep. There it is. Oh, yep. So.
Shit! There's the shadow.
I'm gonna close that book and put it back away and pretend like it didn't.
Oh, look at the time. I gotta go get a shower now. Yeah. Excellent advice. Okay. What is your absolute favorite thing about the work that you do now?
It's going to sound so strange. It's like so simple and yet like a little bit beautifully complex at the same time. Being able to literally love someone else that I've never even met. Right? But the feeling, the somatic response that I get in a client when we have a session and I can feel their body and their literal energy relax to the point of receiving the love. That is my favorite.
Yay.
Yeah, that is my absolute favorite.
The answer is always love. The Beatles got it right.
They too were part of the occult, so yes, they did.
All you need is love. Yo, Erica has another question. I'm working towards not feeling things so deeply when I don't want to, like at work in an empathic way. What is something that you have learned how to do too? Any books or practices you suggest? I know this is a big topic, but she would like any breadcrumbs you could throw at her. Yeah.
So first breadcrumb that I will send out is my own somatic mentor by the name of Luis Mojica. Holistic Life Navigation is his website, holisticlifenavigation.com. The number one thing is like, it's not experiencing it. I would never, ever, ever recommend to not experience. What you want to do is learn how to move it through you faster, right? You want to learn how to move it and regulate it through you faster, right? And so as an empath, it is so important to not block it off, because you're going to start to feel physical symptoms, mental symptoms, even spiritual symptoms if you're trying to literally not feel those things. It's just a huge detriment to our own energetic system, right? You're going to want to learn how to recognize, acknowledge it, and regulate it as quickly as possible. And Luis is amazing at teaching it. It is some of the best work I have done for myself in the last couple of years.
Could you tell us the name again so I can type it out?
Yes, let me find it for you too.
Okay.
Because I don't want it. So his name is Luis, Luis, Mojica, Mojica.
Okay.
And holisticlifenavigation.com. I get zero anything for any I love and adore this man so much. I have recommended him to more. There's only other thing that I've ever recommended to people more has been Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. He's a beautiful man. So, and I kudos to you for being aware that that's an issue. I think it was Erica, right? Being aware that that's an issue, because now you can actually figure out how to deal with it. But I would never recommend trying to not have the emotion. I would recommend trying to figure out how to move it through you as fast as possible.
Yes. Because Erica, your empathic skills are part of your psychic abilities, which you use. You don't want to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
She knows about 4 agreements, though. She said fave, so that's good. Oh, goodness. All right.
Yeah.
This whole conversation has been fabulous. We touched on so many different topics.
We have.
I feel like if I had time, I would write down 2 more pages of questions. But I have asked all my questions.
Well, there was one other question I wanted to talk about that we've been kind of going down the path a little bit. So I wanted to get your input since we had you on the show, and that's it. Well, one thing I wanted to find out is we've talked about talking to people on the other side, and we've talked about spirit guides, and we've talked about the Akashic records. What other, like, typically, like, is when you do your mediumship, is that who you pull in as spirit guides and people on the other side? Like, what are the experiences of that you've had, that you've channeled or had come through?
Excellent question, Frosty, because this has been a hot topic for us for a while.
We talked about Crowley.
Any non-corporeal being, any non-earthly entity, right? Like technically. So, yes, any type of ancestors. So folks that have crossed over, spirit, like animals. So animals have come over to, famous folks, Aleister Crowley, not a whole slew. I had somebody else kind of, interviewing me one time, what famous people, do you want to pull a famous person forward? And I'm like, no.
This is not how this works.
So, and I'm just kind of like, you might be seeing some of they're watching this chuckle and this smirk on my face, because these guys love to show up, and this is how they do it, is like through other people like this, because they know I don't want to bring them up. Aliens. So I do see aliens.
Yes.
They weird me out, though. They're the only. I can have no problem with anything else, but they show up, and like this is, like, I'm telling you, this is literally how they do it, because I avoid them at all times, and they make other people bring the topic of aliens up, and then they just chuckle and laugh, and they're like, yeah.
Well, maybe that's what just happened. Here. That's probably what just happened, because that's been our experience over here. We've been kind of, well, not. Jenny has been dealing.
You have been helping
a lot. Yeah. We lots of alien stuff going on. So we've been kind of curious about how that's been going with other mediums.
Yeah.
They're funny guys. So the first time, I didn't expect it. It was probably like 2 years ago. I do like a little Zoom thing, and you can just pop on. It's like $5, and I'll answer a question. And I'm going through, and this guy never seen him before, never seen him since. And he's like, I know it's going to sound really weird. And I'm like, weird and crazy. And I'm like, I love weird and crazy. I talk to I don't know that we can get any weirder and crazier than dead people, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I think I have an alien attached to me. And all of a sudden, he shows up and waves at me. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, he's there, and I proceeded. It was an agreement that his soul had made with this alien.
Oh,
the
wow.
alien was actually there to be helping him. Like all very purposeful. And that was the thing. He could feel it, and he was having dreams and these things, but it was maddening to this client, because he was feeling like he was crazy. And I'm like, no, all good. You're all set. All agreed. He's like, thank God, and dropped. I was like, and they have never stopped showing up since. And I told you about that program I did last year. Did this one really big ritual, this huge ritual this one weekend, because it was an in-person, four in-person weekends. huge ritual. There's a particular ritual, I think it's in the Order of the Golden Dawn, where you can call forward all of the armies of angels, and it's like 300 and something angels that you call forward. And so as a medium, thank you for the warning. Number one, you're calling forward 300 something angels. Oh my God. So that was super overwhelming to not know what was happening. And then afterwards, whole day's kind of ending. It's like 6 o'clock. It's been a long day of ritual. And they're like, we're going to go to the campfire and we're going to try to talk to and bring down the aliens. And I was like, oh no. No. Mm-mm.
Going to bed.
Yeah, I did. I totally went to bed. So no, they are there, and they're not bad. They're not, they're like actually here to help in a lot of ways. They are, and it's funny. Like my partner's been very obsessed with some of the stuff that's been released. Right, all of this stuff has been released about it, and so we've been watching a lot of stuff around that, and but it's very fascinating because it's like we want to be so afraid, but like if we all actually could see and recognize, they are everywhere.
Yes.
So I just asked them to not show themselves to me, and they only do it when somebody else brings it up, and they find it hilarious. So yeah, they're little practical jokers too.
We have a lot of alien stuff coming up, but I'm not freaked out about it. So I'm pretty open to it. We have a bunch of questions now. Frosty, would you like to ask 713's question?
Yes. Has there been a time when you haven't had capacity to manage someone's shadow work? And how did you manage that?
There's not a lot of times. There's probably one example, and the very unfortunate truth of that was how I handled it was refunding.
Right? That's a good idea, though. If you didn't feel like you could help them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the bigger challenge was 15 minutes into the session, I knew, my guides automatically, and I offered the refund 15 minutes in, and then she took me the whole hour.
Oh, yeah, that's not cool.
And then demanded it was pretty hellacious, to the point that every single one of my systems has a record of her name, her email address that I will never. Yeah. And so, in that particular instance, it's like the capacity to work with. I trust my guides that they'll never put me into a situation that I cannot handle. Mm-hmm. Right. I just have full trust that I have whatever capacity it is that I need to handle within that situation. I think maybe one of the questions is, or one of the ways to like that, maybe to rephrase or shape that question is, have I ever been triggered? Mm-hmm. Have I ever had a shadow come forward? That is a very interesting experience. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen with people that are personally close to me.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where they will be asking for me to help support, and then they themselves knowing me well enough, because they get uncomfortable in that shadow, will throw a dagger. Oh, yeah. Right. And so shadow work it's hard. It's difficult work. So I know it's not personal, but in those moments, it's hard to not be a human and to be like, no, that hurt, Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think I'm ever put in many situations. That one particular client is the only time that I've ever given a refund. And yeah, I prayed for her afterwards that she found the lesson that she needed to in that exchange.
Yeah. All right. Erica has another question. When you talk to someone on the other side, or guides, etc., do you ever wonder if the spirit is posing as someone else, like how humans are trying to impersonate? If you do get impersonating energies, how do you decipher it?
So I do teach people, how to like step into these, and, Jenny, just as you do, it sounds like you mentor people too. One of the things that I always really try to do is I try to have people establish a relationship with an ancestor that they knew first. right? And from there to ask those ancestors to provide the protection to not have that happen. So I try to actually have individuals create an ally on the other side that will be able to prohibit that from being able to come forward. For me personally, I have for a whole year and a half, a whole ritual that I would perform before working with clients every single time.
Mm-hmm.
I have since had that ritual tattooed on me.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
So now when you want to have lazy time, you can just be like, oh, there it is.
There it is. I mean, it's just like all the time on. I'm like, woo, you are protecting me all the time, right? That's how it is.
All right, and we have
you're
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
We have another question from My Celeste Luna. How can you understand your gift and capacity to communicate with spirits? I know everyone has their methods and practices, but what was the time when you had the aha moment? How do you protect your energy, and how have you dealt with any fear? There's a lot in that question, but
there's a few questions in that question.
Yeah.
But you did good, Luna. She was worried about her English, but you did wonderful. Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
So the fear is what I'm going to kind of address first. Mm-hmm. The fear is something like fear. I had to start to change my relationship with fear as an indication of that there was something better on the other side. Fear was an opportunity for me to grow through it. Right. Now, I don't say that because there are definitely some long-standing fears that can be trauma-based that are very difficult to work through. But if it was things like fear of visibility, fear of being wrong, fear of having a client, fear of sharing this, I had to take the stance of just fear wanted me to punch it in the face, kick it, and walk over it, and champion. Be the champion on the other side. So that was like the big thing about fear. Like it was a very conscious effort that every time I experienced what I would label as fear in my body, that was a sign to do the opposite of what I normally would have done. Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Because I wanted change. I wanted different. Mm-hmm. If I didn't want something to be different, I would have continued doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do I protect my energy? That same ritual that I just mentioned calls for protection, calls for clarity, right? The strength to provide the clarity and the healing to the clients that I need. And it also includes protection around the energetic exchange through the mediumship. So I actually do allow for possession in my readings as well. And so the last and final piece is to allow for the protection around the energy so that allow that to set in. I wear a lot of jewelry for protection as well. If I'm actually out or working with clients, I have particular jewelry that has been charged with intentions to help with that. Now, how do I handle my own capacity? This goes back to, again, trusting that my guides are never going to put me into a situation that I cannot. That I cannot tell you how critical to my own journey, trusting my guides, trusting, this is like, as a recovering alcoholic, step one is admitting that we are powerless over alcohol, right? And that our lives have become unmanageable. Step two is turning it over to a higher, saying there's something outside of, and so I trust that my guides are never going to put me in that situation. Or if I'm uncertain, I ask, should I go do this? I literally have events starting at 11 a.m. tomorrow until practically like 7 p.m. Sunday night. And I know I will check in. I will check in the entire time. And if at any point they're like, you're done, then I have to deal with the very sad truth that I have to tell these people that I'm done. Mm-hmm. Right? Is it cool? Is it comfortable? Is it happy? Are they going to be friendly about no? Do I care? Not really. If I'm trying to take care, if I'm trying to take care of myself, and it pisses them off, then they got a little bit of growing to do. They're not understanding that piece, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think part of Luna's question too was, how could someone who this might be their gifts, how can they start to kind of open themselves up to it?
Open themselves up to receiving them.
Yeah. How can she understand having a gift of communicate with spirit? I think it might be what part of her question was.
Um, I find spirit tends to talk more than it'll give pictures, but I think spirit tends to talk more than it does anything else. And being open to it, I really think the number one way is to start talking to it.
Mm.
It's not like it's a two-way conversation. It's not just going to be. So the more you actually start talking and expressing and having these conversations with whether it's your ancestors or a deity or, you will start to hear. Now, you might not hear as though somebody's speaking to you, but they'll come to you in TV. They'll come to you in radio. They'll come to you in other ways, too. Right? They'll come to you in something that someone says and you're like, that's weird. I was just thinking that.
There's coincidences.
Yeah,
there's synchronicities. We had a question from William Farms, Warrior Poet. Are you familiar with the Carlos Castaneda Don Juan books?
I'm not familiar with them.
Okay.
But I know of them, but I've never read them. But I'm chuckling because my partner has recently told me that we should read these books.
Oh, there it is right there.
Yeah,
the synchronicity.
So I know. So
his question really was, how useful are they? But I was wondering but then I was like, well, I wonder if you've even read them. Clearly you're supposed to. So that just means that we'll have to have Sunshine back after she's read them. And then William, you'll get your answer.
There we go. And we have one more that we had put in tonight from 713. Have your guides changed since being sober? Has there been any change with the communication and who shows themselves to you?
Since I have been sober, I've actually had a couple of new people pass away. So I look at my guides as being a lot of my ancestors and the folks that I knew. Like, it's just my strongest connection. It's really good validation when you have somebody on the other side that you can recognize. I have not had any other guides, but I have had other deities that have shown up, planetary deities that I wasn't used to working with. And they end up just kind of like, when I got my Reiki certification, that was the craziest one. I got I hit my level 3, went in for my level 3 attunement, and sitting there and ended up being spoken to by Saint Germain. And I had no idea who Saint Germain was at that point. No clue who he was.
I just listened to a whole podcast about Saint Germain, but it was a cool story about a Saint Germain that was a vampire in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, he has. There's a lot of stories that he has incarnated in a lot of different roles. But the interesting thing, if you look up his Wikipedia, there's a mention on his Wikipedia that he actually doesn't talk. He telepathically communicates, and that was the weird thing. So he showed up as spirit, but I didn't show up. Like, I heard him, I didn't hear him. Right? I heard him. I usually hear from this way. So it was a completely different experience.
So you actually do hear audibly with your ears.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because usually, for me, it's just like thoughts that aren't mine.
Yeah, it shows up in all of the ways.
Wow.
All of the ways, right? All of the ways can show up. It depends on how much I'm paying attention. Yeah, it depends on how much I'm paying attention. So, yeah, that was a very weird experience. But there's been a handful of deities and, kind of ascended masters that have shown up in ways that I didn't expect.
All right.
So things have kind of changed as your journey has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The evolution keeps going, I think. I don't know. I don't think I've heard anyone say they've reached the end point. Like it's an evolving and continuing thing from everyone we've talked to. That always a new surprise around the corner, it seems like. So, well, everyone, we've gone past the 10 o'clock hour. Thank you so much, Sunshine, for coming on and talking with us tonight. I feel like we probably could do another 2 hours, but this is where we'll cut it off tonight. But we would love to have you back on.
People are just asking more and more questions.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming. Yeah. So
anytime, I adore, like I said, I love to chat. So anytime that you want to invite me back, please extend the invitation. I would love to.
Yes.
Excellent. It sounds great. And you said that you where can people if they go to your website, is that where they can find your podcast at also? You said you had a podcast that you do?
So I've actually I just launched it a couple of weeks ago and like have been fumbling my way through it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're on the website, but I don't have them linked yet. It's actually a task I've not gotten to.
Okay. Excellent.
But you can if you look on Spotify, you can find me under Witch Please, Sunshine's Guide to the Mystical.
Okay.
That I know is on Spotify right now. Yeah.
Witch Please. Yeah. Go check that out on Spotify and also make sure you check out www.sunshinereadings.com. That's where you can find all the information. There's a bunch of stuff I was looking at on there that we didn't have a chance to get to tonight, but that'll be something to talk about next time.
Yes.
We'll go
so
ahead
everybody that had a question that we didn't get to, write it down, and we'll when we have Sunshine back on next time, we will dive into all the other topics that you guys wanted to talk to her about.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and do our finish for everyone listening to us on YouTube or on podcast over at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening to us. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time.